Congratulations, you got an interview. Now what? There's sort of a magic to it, or sort of an art. There's an element of getting your head in the right space. There's knowing what you need to do before you walk into that room and knowing what you need to do in the interview room. Here to talk to us today are two experts, Sherry Finkel Murphy and Hilarie Mae.
Sherry Finkel Murphy's first career spanned 25 years in technology and technology sales leadership. She retired as a business unit exec from IBM.
In that capacity, she hired and managed a lot of people, so she has a lot of experience from that side of the table. Now she's a certified financial planning practitioner with Northwestern Mutual Financial Services Network, and she specializes in retirement income planning for professionals and financial security planning for small businesses, including continuity planning, exit strategies, and succession planning. Hilarie Mae is an energy alchemist and mindset consultant. She works with business owners and entrepreneurs to help them get out of their own way and up level. Let's get started. So, Hilarie, how do you mentally prepare for an interview?
Notice what you're thinking, right? So the basis of any mindset work starts with being aware of your current thoughts, even if it is trash talk, right? Even if you're saying terrible things to yourself, being aware of it is the first step to that, right? Knowing that you're saying like, I'm never going to get this job, right? Because if that's just kind of going on in the background and you're not aware of it, you can't stop it and you can't adjust it and you can't redirect that. And then you can counterbalance those thoughts rather than getting rid of the thought, like say, I'm not going to get this job, right? You can counterbalance that with how awesome would it be if I got this job? Right? So you're not lying to yourself and saying, I totally believe I'm going to get this job, right? Which is eventually what we would get you to if you were doing mindset work. But you're counterbalancing that. So you have this really negative, kind of heavy energy wrapped into, I'm never going to get this job. And that's fueling all of your nerves, right? And then you have the counterpoint to that, which is, how awesome would it be if I got this job? Right? How good would that feel? Right? How exciting would that be? How awesome for my life as a whole would that be? So kind of just bringing some balance into that perspective and giving that some airtime in your mind, rather than giving all of the airtime to the negative thought.
Sherry, what should you be doing concretely before an interview to get ready?
The first thing is to know as much as possible about the interviewer personally and about the company where you're going. It always speaks well of you if you are informed, have read the latest press releases, maybe some of the financial releases of the company where you're interviewing. If it's a large company, if it's a small company, they probably are very much ahead of the game in marketing. And so it's important to understand what they're putting out there as their vision and what they expect will attract talent to them. Crawl all over their webpage, etc. In terms of really understanding what the person interviewing you is looking for, it's probably a little in the job description, but it's also in the people who are employed around this person. So if there's any way to put on your private investigator hat and figure out who this person is in the organization, how they entered the organization, that's where LinkedIn is handy, who works for them. Do you know anybody? Is there any way to understand and get a little bit of insight before meeting this person?
What should you do in the interview?
Don't be in a rush to tell. You'll have plenty of time. It's your interview. Listen and ask really good questions. Prepare questions for the interviewer, perhaps even personal questions. What brought you to this organization? What is your history in this organization? What do you feel? I have to tell you, I have had many interviews where I was the interviewee and would ask these personal questions only to determine very quickly that this was a terribly unhappy interviewer who had one foot out the door. And I'm thinking, why do I want to go to this company? This person who's claiming they'll be my boss is not going to be here for very long. I think most people in authority are very flattered when they're asked for mentoring type of information in interviews. If you were in my shoes, what piece of advice would you give me as the interviewee? How might I best make a good impression on you? I would turn that table right, maybe early on in the interview, to see what they say. Their goal should be, and I use this phrase a lot, to change the rules to favor them. When you go into an interview, your job is not to plug your square box into their round hole. Their job is not to shave off your corners. Your job is to fulfill half of the required skills or background that's important, and then to add the je ne sais quoi that is you. Well, preferably a little harder than je ne sais quoi, preferably unique skills and experience that make you not only the must hire, but that adds to the job description so that no one else can fill that job but you going forward. And if you have successfully changed one or more of the requirements by being in the room, it's yours if you want it. When I interview people, I look for their preparation, I look for their earnestness, I look for their self-esteem. Notice how I haven't listed the skills. If you're interviewing for a team placement, if you're interviewing for fit in an organization, you can probably backfill skills. And if somebody's really worth it for reason X, Y, and Z, then I'm willing to train them on the one skill that they don't have because I need what they bring to the table.
So how does a person get confident enough to change the rules for them? I know a lot of my clients really struggle with confidence especially this idea of telling themselves that they're underqualified. If, as Sherry says, skills can be backfilled, how do you get your mind on board?
So qualified is, generally speaking, much more a mindset and a way of presenting yourself than of actual fact. No employer ever has seen a resume and said, man, this person is totally underqualified. I'd love to bring them in for an interview. Right? It's not how the world works. It's totally illogical. It doesn't happen ever. Right? They don't want to waste their time. They don't want to waste your time. They wouldn't even be bringing you in if they didn't believe that you were qualified, or that there was something in your resume or your cover letter or whatever that sparked their interest, right? They're interested in you if they're bringing you in. And you can tell yourself that, like, that can be a thought. They think I'm qualified. That's why they're bringing me in, right? And you can remind yourself of that. And then for your own sanity, you can also say some stuff to yourself about that. Like, I'm as qualified as I choose to be, right? Like, qualified is a mindset, right? There are people who are so incredibly confident and terrible at what they do, right? But they roll into an interview like they have got it in the bag. Saying qualified or unqualified is actually just kind of an illusion that you're making up in your own mind in order to get in your own way, right? In order to create some internal resistance.
I'm curious about imposter syndrome. I know so many of my clients, so many people have imposter syndrome. I know that I have. And it shows up in the job situation, either in the interview phase, telling yourself that you're going to get caught. You're not really as hot as they think you are. Or sometimes in the job situation, it can show up. So I'm curious, what if you walk into the interview, Hilarie, and you're terrified that you're going to open your mouth and prove that you don't really deserve to be there?
And you know what? That's actually possible. Right? Like, that's happened before. I've interviewed a few times and I went in there and they started asking me questions that were like nowhere on the, job description. And I was like, fuck, this is not for me. Right? Like, I'm not what they expected. They're not what I expected. Right? And chances are, if that's true, it's going to be mutual, right? You are going to feel like they don't suit you just as much as they're going to feel like you don't suit them, right? So there's that aspect of it. Chances are that's totally not the case, right? Chances are you're not an imposter. You're actually very well qualified. And again, this is that ego mind saying we have to stay in the comfort zone, because the second we step out of the comfort zone, we die, right? Death awaits us. That's what your mind is actually saying when you get those imposter syndrome thoughts, right? Which is super dramatic and terrifying. Like on a nervous system level, your whole mind, limbic system, energy is saying death awaits us, right? And so that's a perfect opportunity for you to say to yourself, like, this is okay. This is me stepping out of my comfort zone, right? Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I'm really good at what I do. And you can look up past evidence of that, which I find really useful in an imposter syndrome situation, is to think about your past jobs. Have you sucked at all of them? Probably not, right? Like there's a really good possibility that you've accomplished a lot. And it's okay to remind yourself of that, because I think in the moment when you're thinking about the next step, it's really easy to totally forget every good, awesome thing you've ever done, right? And it's almost like all that exists is right now, and right now they're going to find out that I have no idea what I'm talking about, right? When in fact, you've actually known what you were talking about for a really long time, and there's a lot of evidence of that. So show yourself some evidence.